parallel, I was thinking about it, is the 248 chapters. They're all having this. Well, if they're on the other side of the planet, they're not. But
and it's typically the fourth Friday.
But Austin, for example, is having a parallels today. So there's parallels in what's happening at this moment when other speakers are sharing. This is my emotional support dog. Brad and I have been working together in the trenches since 2015 or 16, I think it was, down in Kenya.
Started as friends.
Yeah, worked in Kenya together, worked in India together. A lot of parallels in our lives. Both came from the corporate world. In our 30s, we said that's not for us. So we made some changes, and we've been working together ever since, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you to work here.
Okay.
Brad's a filmmaker.
I also pushed this button, right?
Yeah, that's it. And thank y'all for coming. I know you have choices with what you do with your time, so thanks for being here for this presentation. I'm Greg Davis. What brought me to Fort Worth was this lovely lady here, a parallel for me. Miss Amy Davis, officially as of yesterday, she got her name changed, so. Amy's from Fort Worth. I lived in Austin for 26 years. I grew up in a small town in East Texas. My family's long Texan lineage. And Fort Worth was always interesting to me. You know, I never had lived here, but it was always sort of like, man, I think I might like, because it's got this small town, authentic, laid-back vibe. And the art scene is fantastic, well supported. I just felt like maybe one day, I don't know. And sure enough, when Amy and I met, she was from here. We decided to move up about a year and a half ago to Fort Worth. And my brother's he lives in Livingston in a small town, East Texas, where I grew up, and he's been doing some genealogy work around the family. And he hands me this document a month before I moved up last year, and he says, check this out, dude. And he hands me this document, and I'm reading this document, and he's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. He goes, dude, it's like you're going home. He found out that my great-great-grandfather, Mr. Oldham, was one of the first merchants in downtown Fort Worth in the 1860s. They had a store catty corner to the city, to the courthouse there, 16 Houston Street. We found some advertisements for some sheet wool and liquor and cigars and anything that they needed on the frontier back then. His brother, Lee Oldham, my great-great-great-uncle, on the left, was the 4th General Postmaster of Fort Worth. To the right, his roommate at Franklin College is Colonel Van Zant, Mr. Fort Worth. Wow. Okay, so this is all new to me. I'm blown away. It's like, wow. I mean, we go back to like.
When did you get the document?
About a year and a half ago. I mean, my brother did the research and handed me this about a year and a half ago. Next, yep. So this is not in Fort Worth. They were moving around a lot there. The train came up from Galveston and stopped in a place, I can't think of the name of the town, Milliken maybe, near College Station. The train came up from the port of Galveston, and that spread goods out into the frontier. And so these guys were moving around Milliken, Fort Worth. They were out in Weatherford. They were Jacksboro. So we haven't figured out where this store was, but that's one of the Oldham stores. This is his daughter. This is my great-grandmother. And she was orphaned at 2. So her parents, Mr. Oldham, that's the first slide, passed away in his 30s. His wife passed away in her 30s. So she was 2. Her sister was 4, and then she had some older siblings that we don't really know where they ended up. But she ended up getting adopted by the Loving family, George Loving, because Loving was married to an aunt. She lived at the house where now this was the old Oldham home on Summit Avenue. It's now Herald Park. It's not, the house is long gone, but Mr. Loving sold it to Harold, and then Harold had it demolished, and they made a park of it. And then my grandmother met this strapping lad. This is a Davis. This is Henry Beeman Davis. And those two set off for East Texas, for Livingston, in the late 1800s, and they opened up a store with his brother called the Davis Brothers. And that store was in my hometown for 94 years, I believe. In this photograph on the left is Henry Davis on the right, you can kind of see her, the little small little lady. She's about that tall. She's got a fur on, a fur hat. That's Miss Oldham. And then their son, my grandfather's the one here, and he's flirting with my grandmother there. They were courting at that point. But that's them in the H.B. Davis store. Okay. And that's their son, my dad, and he's the biggest Baylor fan you've ever met. Okay. I was the high school newspaper photographer in high school in Livingston, and it showed some promise, but wasn't like, okay, this kid's got something like special. But Dad's like, hey, son, you're about to graduate from high school. What do you want to do? What do you think you want to do? And I was like, art school? He's like, no. What do you want to do? I go, I want you to go to Baylor. I want you to get your business degree. Our family's been educated at Baylor. We go back 3 generations of education there. So go to Baylor, get your business degree, and then you can do whatever you want. So that's kind of the path I took. I put the camera down. In 1987, I was shooting film. I was shooting in the darkroom, photographs of, the football team and opposing cheerleading team and, other things that interested me at that time. And then I put it down. I went to school, went to Waco, Baylor, woke up 18 years later, and I was stuck behind a desk job working for big tech. I missed my turn, like, whoa. But I just fell in line, and here I am, I'm in the system. And then in 2000, all of these family members, this is my aunt and her family, and they're all passed. They passed in a very short amount of time, all from different reasons. My dad died. My grandmother died. So I lost 7 family members total, but in a very short amount of time, there was 5 of them that died. I was in my 30s. I was in corporate America. I was working for Hewlett-Packard, Dell. So death. Then I was attacked by a gang. I got 40 stitches in my head and neck from a violent attack, unprovoked attack from behind. In order for this guy to get into this gang, he needed to draw blood from a stranger. I happened to be the stranger that came across this situation. Unprovoked, I got hit from behind. I'm down. My ear's literally hanging off my face. I'm on the ground. I'm getting beat. Lucky to have gotten out alive. It's a whole story, but that with the death, I started drinking pretty heavily. I rounded a corner one night and I rolled my car 3 times. A girlfriend cheated on me. I lost about $200,000 in a bad financial move, which in my 30s, that was kind of all I had. So here I was broke, I was beaten, I was battered, I was drinking, I was angry, everybody was dying around me. I was a mess, an absolute disaster. And I remember about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was in bed and I was shivering. And I wasn't shivering from cold, I was shivering from fear. And I got out of the bed, and I got on my knees, and I was just like, I can't take anymore. It's kind of awesome that I'm in this church doing this right now, but I can't take this. I can't take anymore. I can't. Help. Surrendered. And I quit drinking, and the proverbial lightning struck, if you will. The serendipity started happening. I was aware of it because I wasn't masking it with alcohol or anything else that I could get my hands on. But I started realizing, wow, these things were happening, and I looked at it as a language. I looked at it as thank you for that sign that just happened, because there's no way I could have even made that up. Like, wow, what a coincidence. Serendipity, synchronicity, God wink, all of these things started happening, and it was so strong that at one point I pulled the trigger.
I won't let that happen again. My bad.
It's okay. I didn't know it was going to. Go ahead and go to the next one. I pulled the trigger and sold everything I owned, and I went around the world with a $400 point-and-shoot camera in 2004. After all these things that started happening, like, wow, thank you. I'm getting it. I hear you. So I sold it all, grabbed a $400 camera, this one, Olympus C720, I think it's called. I still have it at the studio. Life-changing situation. But I went around the world for a year, and I was looking to reconnect all the things that I'd lost trust in. I lost trust in God. Everybody around me was dying. I lost trust in people because I was attacked. I lost trust in women because I was cheated on. I lost trust in the system because I was stolen from what I felt like in a bad financial situation. And I lost trust in myself for the things that I was doing, putting myself in danger. So I basically just said, that's it. And I stripped myself of everything, sold it all, I didn't have a whole lot of money. I had a little bit, but I took that and I bought a one-way ticket that had multiple stops around the world for a year. So along the way, I'm looking to reconnect to people, and it was immediate that I had this thing with people, and I was able to, and I apologize for the projectors not projecting. Now, as a photographer, you know, it's kind of driving me crazy, but the photos are much more bright, and there's more connection. There you go. Just look at the small screen to get an idea. Yeah. Go ahead. Now, I didn't always have to speak their language either, because I could flirt. And so this guy, for example, I saw him, his hair was down to his ankles, dreaded. And so I approached the guy, and I said, he went, since I was a baby, I've never cut my hair. So I was like, okay, I'm in, okay. So we started talking, we started looking at each other's shoes and rings and whatnot. And I just said, there was a little ledge behind him. You stand there. So he stood there, and he was looking down, and then the shadows. Early on, I had a really good sense of shadow and light, and so I told him, look up. And then when he looked up, I got this photograph, which was one of my early favorites, because there was a spirituality in the photograph that really spoke to me. Next. That's Nepal. It's Kathmandu. Started looking beyond the subject, looking at more depth, and this is early on. It had been 18 years since I really was a photographer, and didn't really consider myself one at this point. I was just a guy at the end of the rope, at the frayed end of the rope, looking to find myself and recreate, but follow these God winks, trust this surrender and these things that were happening. We started looking beyond the subject, looking at depth of photographs. And I had no idea I'd be sharing these today when I was taking these photographs. I was just a photographer, traveler, cruising. Never seen anything like this. I call it Day at the Spa in Laos. Love the expression, the juxtaposition, the parallels, if you will, between the two, but the differences between the two in India, in the Thar Desert. The colors, ubiquitous cow. The abstract nature of boats in Vietnam. And then 9 months into this one-year trip, I'm on a trail in the far north of Vietnam, up in an area called Sapa, ethnic minority region, a lot of Hmong people, a lot of Red Dao people, all dressed in their traditional dress, a massive sense of pride on their outfits. It takes them about a year to weave, but they grow the hemp, they harvest the silk, they grow the cotton, they grow the indigo plants to make blue. They all of it. I mean, it's all from the things they wear are of the earth. They're even buried in the clothes that they make. It takes them about a year to make these clothes, but there's a real sense of pride, and each group has their own sort of general vibe. I was coming down on this trail. This woman's coming up this trail, and she's in front of me, and her hands are flashing blue and green, and I'd never seen a woman with a blue and a green hand. I was 9 months into a one-year trip. I was pretty cozy on the road. I was pretty cozy connecting with people. Down there by myself, cruising around, looking for magic, just looking for experience. And she turned around a little startled by the white guy with it wasn't quite this, but the bearded white man in the middle of nowhere. So she kind of was startled a little bit, but I kind of belittled myself and kind of backed away and asked her what's on her hands. She looked at her own hands and she says, again, with these hand signals, you can do magic with it. Weave, and she did this. And I wasn't really sure. Took one shot, didn't think about it, went on about my business. She looked at me like, this guy's nuts, And I had no idea that it was going to be something. I thought, wow, what a cool thing. 9 months, the cycle of birth. My life as a photographer was born that day. I just didn't know it. When I got back into the States, 3 months after that 9 months, the full year, somebody said, man, I saw your pictures. You showed them to me. Phones weren't around then. It was on the computer, but wow, what are you doing with these things? I said, well, I don't know. I just came from the corporate world. I just came back from this one-year trip. They said, dude, you got something here. Like, you ought to try to sell them or something. I was like, okay, well, I didn't know. So I went to this little art market like they would have over on the near south side. It was down in Austin. And the guy, I walked in this little market, and I said, I'm a photographer. I got these pictures from this trip, goes, oh yeah, we'll set you up. We'll get you some. I call this my chicken wire days. But we got some chicken wire things. We got a little tent. We'll set you up and go print and do whatever you need to do. I didn't have a clue about archivability. I didn't have a clue about museum rag. I didn't have a clue about what I was doing. I'm embarrassed to tell you where I got them printed. I won't. But I did it. I started walking, and I could tell from the first day that people were drawn to the emotion of the pieces, and they started selling really well, enough to where after day 2 I was like, this is what I'm doing. It was like, wow. So that was 20 years ago. So after it started kind of happening, things were kind of going well, I was like, okay, well, I need to continue this path. So I went down to an international festival in the States, and I photographed this piece and then the next piece, and I realized that I don't really necessarily have to go overseas to shoot things that have power, that have meaning, that have story. This is Motapa. This was an African. They were celebrating the continent of Africa, but he was dressed up that day, and I asked him if I could shoot his portrait. Simple as that. Hey, do you mind if I shoot your portrait? And I gave him a picture and gave him some small ones he could use for that, paid him a little bit. The next one. So I said, well, okay, it's working here. Maybe I should buy another ticket and go out. Maybe this can work. Maybe if I go out and shoot and I come back and do another art festival, or maybe I can make this kind of start to work. Wasn't sure, but so I bought a decent camera. I bought at that point it was a $1,000 camera. I think it was a Canon 30D DSLR, professional, and photographed this in Morocco, and then the next one I photographed on that same first journey back out in Spain. And I knew that I had something, because it was just sort of some of this stuff feels guided. Those of you who are photographers, and artists in general, musicians in general, I think you understand the muse. Dancing with the muse, right? Just get out of your way, get out of the way, get out of your head, and let it take over. And it will guide you, and it's magic when it happens. A prime example, it's just it looks like he took a bite of the wall, the half and half, the whole thing just kind of came together beautifully for me. So at that point, that's not my photograph. That's not my photograph. Yeah, this is 85 in Pakistan, but around the Afghanistan war, the Russian invasion. A photographer named Steve McCurry, who's heroic level for me. Somebody said, oh, he's speaking in Waco. Well, I'd been selling my work at these little markets, and I'd done a few larger little markets in Austin, and had enough confidence in what I was doing that, that people liked it. I'm like, well, let me go listen to this guy who does this, see what he's got to say. So we went to the Waco Art Museum, and Steve McCurry had an exhibit, and he was doing a talk, and it was packed. There was 400 people there probably, and I remember and I was kind of in the middle, about 4 or 5 rows back in the middle, and he opened it up for questions at the end, and I'm just shaking in my boots, like, get up to it, ask him, ask him. If I stood up, hey, okay? It's like, yeah, I'm a photographer. I just started my journey, and I'm wondering if there's some advice that you could give to a young guy on how to continue the path. I've only been doing it a few years, but I'm really inspired by your work. And he said, well, I think it's really important to get your work in front of quality people that can help you on your path. Get in front of editors, get in front of other big-time photographers, and people that can really sort of maybe look at the work and see if there's something there and guide you in that way. And I said, okay, well, thank you. And I sat down, and I had my portfolio underneath my table, or under my seat, and I said, excuse me, Mr. McCurry, I've got my portfolio right here. And the whole crowd just lost it. It just laughed, and he kind of went touche, But I got him. I got his attention. And so after that was the last question, and he was over there signing books, and I was the last in line, and we got, getting over close to him. And when you're signing books, you don't really look down the line. You're just looking right here. What's your name? Thank you for coming. What's your name? You're not. So I was able to sneak in without him even seeing me. And then he looked up, and he looked at me and goes, oh, hey, it's you again. I go, boom, there's my portfolio. So there he is, and there's me in 2007. Nice. Just get a wheelbarrow for him, and carry him around. That's what I feel like. Just, sorry, that was a little bit. But you gotta have pride, you gotta have confidence in what you're doing. And I did, whether it was blind or not. I just felt like enough people were responding to the work. It didn't take a lot of people. Some people walk by and go, I could have taken that picture. That's crap, you know. Okay, some people don't like the Beatles. Some people won't listen to the Beatles. I know, not many, but there are people. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, not everyone's going to like your work, you know. Not everyone's going to like it, but I wasn't stuck on that. I knew that was going to be a guy that might be able to help me. So I did what I did, planted some seeds. That was 07. This is 08. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep going and doing what I'm doing. Went to Burma. Burma was closed at that time. Actually, this is a really cool photograph, and you go back. So these are two monks going on alms. We'll figure it out. So what's cool about this photograph is it's two young monks on alms. They're going to ask. They have these brass bowls, and they're asking for food and money for them to continue their service and their studies. And yes, it's a misty morning, but the shine on the bridge is not from the shine of moisture. It's from the oils at the bottom of the monk's feet from centuries of crossing that bridge, which I always thought was really, really interesting. Okay. Sometimes things happen in the work when you're doing it. Buddhism is about enlightenment. There's an enlightenment in the light on the subjects there. Buddhism is about awakening. There's an awakening even in the posture as the head's coming up, as you come from left to right. So even within that, and I didn't plan that. So sometimes magic happens when you're creating and the muse helps. So that photograph is 09 in Cuba. That was an easy photograph. She wanted it. I didn't know who she was, but it was a very powerful photograph for me. People engaged with it and have it hanging in their homes. And so I went back 5 years later, and I found her. And I got her name. Her name's Esperanza. She was a cigar roller. Again, sorry you can't see her face. The contrast on the machine's not great. But she was a pistol. She acted like she remembered me. Told her thank you. Papua New Guinea, 09. Sing Sing's a tribal festival in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. It's still a warring nation because of resources, but they come together in a friendly affair, but they come into this affair as, if you come here, this is our side of the island, this is kind of what you're going to have to deal with. And so very strong masculine posturing going on, but nothing broke out while we were there. Ethiopia 2011, I guess in between 09 and 11, I've got to share this story. So I was showing my work at a thing called the Armadillo Christmas Bazaar. So I make my living, I'm not really hireable, I'm a terrible hire. I don't like timelines and bosses, and I have to wait for my work. I wait for things to develop. So I'm terrible to be hired. I'm fortunate that I have the patience and time to wait for these moments that move me and hopefully move others. But between 2009 and within the last image and this image, I was showing my work at a big Christmas event because I sell my work as art, the pieces on the walls. And next door, the stroke of luck was that National Geographic Books had a huge book sale. And they had leftover books, and they can either pay to store those books in warehouses or they can have book sales. So they have a system in place. At the end of the year, they sell all their books. Well, there's a couple of different things that may have happened. I don't really know the story, but I do know that the producer of the show went next door and handed free tickets to all of the people at Nat Geo Books. Hey, y'all come over here and engage with this art thing. There's music, 3 bands a day, there's 200 artists. It's a multi-day affair. It's like a 10-day affair. And so they came over, and I remember a woman walking up to me, and she goes, "Hi, I'm Gina Martin with National Geographic." And I was like, "Oh, whoa, zing!" You know, like, wow. Didn't show my poker face, but welcome. And she walks into it's a square booth, and she walks in. She's got her hands behind her, and she's looking up at the work, and I'm over here watching every move, and I can't see her face, and I can't see any expression, but I'm thinking, oh my God, what are the chances? And I'm thinking, what is she thinking? She sees the best work in the world. And she turns around. "Well, it's nice to meet you. Good luck." And I thought, well, bummer. Okay. You know, I was watching the bobber, and bobber did not. I was like, okay. All right, fair enough. 6 months later, I'm in West Texas. And the stretch between Marfa and Austin, not Austin, but probably, I don't know, Junction maybe, dead. Back then it was dead. But then the phone started, as soon as I got back in, you hear the bleep, 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 it starts going off. And I picked up the phone, I'm driving, and I handed it to the girl I was dating at the time. I said, read that. And she's like, oh my God, pull the car over. National Geographic contract, 2010. They signed me with the National Geographic Image Collection, 2010. So, I mean, it worked. It worked. I don't know. Thank you. I mean, it was a dream come true. So I started going to DC, started engaging, and then I realized, oh shoot, this is serious now. I gotta shoot. Like, I gotta make this thing as best I can do. So this is 2011, Ethiopia, 2012, in China, 2012, India, and then one more, India in 2012. And then I was approached by a museum, the Museum of the Museum of the Southwest approached me and said, hey Greg, we want you to, our theme this year for our artists, there's gonna be 6 artists, and the theme's gonna be myth and legend. We want you to bring an exhibit of your work. It can be existing work or it can be new work, but we want your theme to be myth and legend. So first thing that popped up, what is mythical and legendary to me is Kumbh Mela. Kumbh Mela is the pilgrimage in India that just happened. It only happens every 12 years. So 2013, 2025, 2037, da-da-da-da. So it just happened. 400 million people came. When I was there, it was 150 million people came in 2013. 40 square miles of humanity. But it's mythical, it's legendary. I took a small film crew and let magic be magic. Yes, you could focus on how big this thing was, but it was really the individual pilgrims and their reasons for coming to this thing that I really wanted to focus on. A Hindu believes in reincarnation. A Hindu believes they're going to be reborn into the next life according to how they live this life. So if I'm a bad person, next life, I'm going to be downgraded socioeconomically, or maybe, I don't know, it could be a lot of different things, yeah. If I'm a good person, hey, maybe I'll be upgraded. But most people have kicked the proverbial cat. We're all sinners. They're like, okay, let's just check out while we got a chance. So they make this journey to this confluence of these 3 rivers, and they come in such massive numbers. It's a 55-day festival. I was there for 18 days. We shot a short film because I wanted this exhibit to not only have these meaningful photographs, but also wanted to have some visual context, some video context around the exhibit to help people better understand what it was about. Brought in sitar and tabla, so we had traditional live Indian music, and we had the Indian Dance Company do an interpretive dance around what this pilgrimage was about. We served Indian food, so I basically brought India to this museum, and then I bounced that around to 8 other museums and art centers around Texas from 2013 to 2018. But these are some of the images from that. This is Mohan Baba. This is a sadhu. This is a man who came from wealth, and he gave it all away. I asked him, where do you live? Because no one's from the pilgrimage. Everyone's a visitor. So where are you from? He looked at me, and he had really sparkly eyes, and he says, the sky is my roof, the land is my room. Oh, that's good. I like that. I spent about 3 days with Mohan. He's in the film. Cloth Paper Dreams is the name of the film. I just checked on Mohan. Unfortunately, he's fallen, and he broke his hip. And so I'm in contact with his keeper right now. He's in the hospital right now. So prayers and thoughts for Mohan Baba. That's Mohan listening to himself. We did some recording, some audio of him because he just said the coolest stuff. He said, I came from a wealthy family and I gave it all away, and now my life has no tribulation. So the parallel, I gave it away. I gave the job away. I gave all the things away. I'm not a sadhu, nor do I claim to be a sadhu. I came back to a home with a roof, and but there's a part of me that's parallel with the choice of giving away that wealth. So I resonate with this man, and I'm grateful to him for what role he played with us during this process. This is the moment of Kumbh Mela. This is what 150 million people came for. This is what 400 million people came for this year. was that moment that they drink and bathe breaks the cycle of reincarnation. And at that moment, he realizes that's the moment of his salvation. When he dies, he'll be going to heaven. He won't be reincarnated because he made that journey, and that's why they come. This is, I call this one Rudraksh Baba. Rudraksh is the bead. Sometimes you'll see people with 108 beads, one strand, but this young man has showered himself in them. He has ashes on his face to be a reminder that we all return ashes to ashes. It's a one-way ticket out of here, folks. He's got a crown of marigold, and he's got a gold leaf in the holiest part of the head. This is Emin Pasar. He's a sadhu as well. This is in his lair. I call it his lair. It's his home, but he became a sadhu at 3 years old, which is really rare. His grandfather was a sadhu, and so he taught him the ways really early. You know Emin Pasar?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was our trip.
Yep. That was our trip. So this is not Kumbh Mela. Yeah.
It was the half trip.
Yeah. So Brad's gone back to India with me on. They have a half Kumbh Mela every 6 years. It's smaller. So you recognize some of these. This is henna. He's self-applied henna. He was sitting in the Mahindra Jeep and applying, and I just waited for him to come out. I knew it would be a striking photograph. So patience. And he was cool with it. I mean, I'm talking to the guys, flirting with them and waiting. And okay. That's Emin Pasar again. You remember that? Yeah. Okay. That's Mohan Baba again. And 6 years later from the Kumbh Mela. Call this one Tiger Baba. The film showed at the Lone Star Film Festival and some other places. It now lives on Gaia.com. You can stream it online for free on my site. It's 11 minutes short. Don't get any popcorn. It's a nice little moral, though. You know, I mean, I wasn't a pilgrim of faith to Kumbh Mela. We're all here to seek to connect to something greater than ourselves, in whatever way that is. And through the moral of this story was through faith, devotion, and purpose. Those are the pillars to get you there. So Mohan represents faith. I represented purpose because my purpose there was this exhibit and to bring light to these people in this Kumbh Mela. And then there was another man, Andre Eichmann, who showed up on day 16 of 18 of the shoot. We were almost wrapped, and this guy walked into our camp and says, I'm here to bury my father. He's American. He said, I'm here to bury my father. And the filmmaker, not Brad, another guy, we looked at each other like, can we film that? And he said, I don't know, it's pretty personal. That's okay, you know. Next morning, he said, y'all can go with me. So we went out to the confluence of the rivers, and we buried Otto Eichmann, Andre's dad, with the ashes. And he ended up being the pillar of devotion. So faith, Mohan, purpose, Andre, devotion. Faith, devotion, purpose. That's the pillars to connect us. That's what the film is about. This is Jerome down in, the other one was Jerome down in Jazz Fest. I was commissioned by the Instagram account for Nat Geo to shoot Jazz Fest, and that piece came out of that. I wanted my work to start having more of a purpose, so I asked for it, and a nonprofit in Austin, Texas called WellAware. They build water wells in remote Kenya. Everything happened to sync up, so I created this with the children in that village to be a metaphoric representation of the well that was built in Alamak. These children now have a school. They have a 2-acre garden. They have surplus vegetables. Girls are graduating from the 9th grade now. The water's all down there. They can't get to it because it's too deep. So heavy equipment drilling, funding, and WellAware allows this to happen. One of the village girls who now has water in school. This is the moment, I call this the water dancer. This is the moment that water came out of the top of the well. This is the joy and the hope that this woman had for her people. Okay. Remember her? She was fun, wasn't she? Yeah. Water's the key. You can see there's a key hanging from the necklace. I thought it worked well with the composition. And WellAware used these images to help promote their cause, and I think they've done, it's helped them raise awareness. And then we went back again with Brad. We went with a band. We had a rock and roll band, 2 music videos, a film about WellAware's work. It was wild. It was 2 photographers, filmmaker. This is one of the images that I made out of that. Again, following the lines of the last Circle of Gratitude. This is also Circle of Gratitude 2. Working with older children, more of round hands. Peru, 2016. Queshuachaca, the bridge. Beautiful light. Things just happen sometimes when you're walking around San Miguel de Allende. Okay, so everything's wrapped. I get contacted by the Waco Art Center again, who I'd shown my Kumbh Mela work, the India work with the dancers and all of the food and the sitar. Well, Waco said, man, we've never had more people engage in our exhibit. We want you again. We're opening up a brand new center. Waco's killing it right now, Chip and Joanna Gaines. 30,000 people are going to Waco every weekend. And so the Art Center bought land right near the silos. And they opened up a brand new art center. And they said, we want you to bring another thing like you did with India. So I was like, okay, here's my price. I saw the throat go, oh. Because now I'm starting to realize, okay, let's see what this takes. I said, okay. I said, look, you sell this many tickets at this price, boom, you're almost, you're 2/3 there. Sold out in 3 days. 225 people came. We had 20 dancers. We had 6 different forms of folk art. We had mezcal pouring. We had a Oaxacan chef do Oaxacan food. We had indigo dyeing workshops from weavers that I brought in from Oaxaca. So it's a full cultural experience that this thing has now shown Waco, Georgetown Art Center, and Abilene Contemporary Art Center. It has not shown in Fort Worth yet. If I can find the right partners, people, everything's got to line up. It's still there. I still have it ready. These are some of the images. Oh, actually, that's me. I reached out to Steve McCurry. You can see in the background. So Steve McCurry I'd met at the Waco Art Center in 2007 when I said, hey, I've got my portfolio right here. That moment, that was at the old Art Center. So I just said, you know what? Thanks, honey, for pushing me to do it. I'm going to reach out to Steve McCurry and tell him this story, that I'm going to be one of the first big exhibits at the Waco Art Center, and that day that I met him there. And so he did a cool little video of, hey, congratulations to the Art Center and congratulations to Greg Davis and Oaxacan Gold. And, so that was a real moment for me. I got a little choked up when I was talking. Oaxaca, you could shoot it the rest of your life and not cover it. It's deep, 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 deep. I covered, of course, Day of the Dead. Shot at night with a flash. This is a Migdio. We actually served his mezcal at the event. He's a third-generation mezcalero from Miahuatlan, which is the mezcal area. That's au natural. That's natural light. That's him doing his thing. This is a place called Mitla. You see the Catholic Church is propped on top of the Zapotec, sort of square Zapotec ruins, which is the Catholic Church would come in and do that. But I did my thing with the composition. The emotion of agave, the cactus is a big part of the culture there. This is called La Danza de los Diablos. This goes back to the Catholics coming to the New World and bringing Catholicism, and the threat of not converting and joining us is... So, the Mixtec Native American people blended the Catholicism with the animism, and they turned this thing into... They're Christian people, they're Catholic people, but it scares the living daylights out of the children, and they end up at church because they're like, okay, it works. This thing works. But this is Blanca Vera. She's a friend of mine. Her dad is the master who hand carves all of these masks. Each mask is carved from a fallen Montezuma cypress. Montezuma cypress grow really close to the water, like down at Wimberley. You see all the cypress trees by the water, and they're full of water. So when they fall really heavy, and it takes it. Alejandro, her dad, he came to the exhibit, and we took him down to Wimberley, and he said, árboles es mi trabajo. These trees are my work. I was like, oh. So we started talking about that. So when they fall, it takes about 1.5 years for the evaporation, but it leaves tiny pores in the wood, which makes it a softer wood for him to be able to carve and get the texture of the beards and things. Yeah, it's strong. This piece lives in the Whitliff collection. The Whitliff collection is Bill Whitliff, wrote the screenplay for Lonesome Dove. He has a major photography collection. They got 3 pieces. This is one of them. Esteban Cruz, he makes the hats. This goes back to Aztecs. But we spent some time together, and he allowed me to photograph him. This is Jose Garcia Antonio, blind potter. What I love about their story, and that's Teresita, his wife, she has a birthmark right here on her forehead. Pretty sizable, about maybe the end of your pinky. He's blind, but all of his feminine pots have the birthmark on them, and you can kind of see, maybe not so much in this particular situation, but his feminine pots have that touch of love on there. Zancudos. In order to cross the arroyos, when the arroyos would rise from the floods, because it's in a valley, the rains come down, the arroyos rise before bridges. They had to cross the arroyos with these stilts to continue commerce, and they're still using them in dance form. This was shot 3 days ago. This is an Otomi. Otomi is a Mexican native, indigenous people, the Otomi people. It's Maasai. We shot this out at a ranch in Weatherford. But just I wanted to put some new work that I'm still at it, okay? Still at it. I had the blessing to be able to get published in Women. This is also an exhibition for National Geographic. This is the woman that's in that book. Dr. Karimba Ringera is Kenyan. She brings in AIDS babies. She brings in battered women. She's really like changing the world with her work. It's called International Peace Initiative. So for her to get that time, I remember that day that we were there, and I asked her to go for a walk, and we were walking through the woods, and I was like, "What's that out there? It's a little rondavel, little round building." She said, "Oh, that's the Peace Hut." It's like, "Can we go over there?" So we go over there, and there's a round window, and I thought, would you go inside the door and just kind of poke your head out the window? And I kind of stuck back. Wait, there's a Peace Hut, okay. And then the stroke of luck was that there was another round window on the backside, inside, and I created a halo that matched. She had sort of a greenish turban, and that window behind her is the halo from the second window. Yes, she's an angel. This is the exhibit in Malaga, Spain, and then right now it's in, I don't think it's Seoul, Taipei, Taiwan. This is in Taipei, Taiwan right now. So it's traveling around with the Women National Geographic exhibit. So beyond honored to be associated with Nat Geo and have work published. And next. This is the studio, shot by Mr. Brad here with his fancy camera. And this is where we're going to have our event tomorrow from 12 to 9. We got 18 artists. Next one is probably the slide for the marketing for the event. And it has all the details of the address. You can take a picture of that. Over here, I've got postcards of me and my website. There's a write-up in Made Worthy magazine that Megan Henderson, probably one of the best articles I've had written. She nailed it. It's so great. But that's over there. It's also online. Follow me on social media at gregdavisphotography.com, and thank you for all of your time and listening to my journey. I hope you find a parallel in the story.